Hello, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Screens. I'm your host, Jalen, a sociology student, a proud Hispanic and Asian woman, a sister, youngest of three, an auntie, and someone who cares deeply about the mental health of today's youth. Teens' mental health has gotten worse over the past decade, and it's not because kids changed, our society did. Our technology, our schools, our inequalities, our expectations. Today, we're going to dig into all of that. I brought on some people from different parts of my life: teenager, parents, grandparents, and my best friend. Because mental health isn't shaped by one factor, it's a whole ecosystem. Let's start things off with someone who's been by my side for a couple of years: my best friend. My first guest joining us today is my best friend, Addie. We've known each other for 3 years, and we often find ourselves talking about mental health in our adolescent years, as we are both from Generation Z. Hey girl, thank you for being here. I know this topic can get heavy.
Girl, of course, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we're talking about this stuff.
Right? It's important to have a conversation. So, the both of us grew up navigating mixed culture identities, me being Asian and Hispanic, and you being Hispanic mixed with other identities. Please share with us a little bit about your identity along with your cultural background.
For sure. So, I identify as a queer Latina and I use she, her pronouns. My family's pretty mixed, culturally speaking. So, I grew up with a blend of different traditions and expectations. It was confusing at times, but it's also a big part of who I am now.
Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to start by asking, what was your mental health experience like growing up, like especially within your cultural background?
Honestly, mental health just wasn't talked about at all. It was super stigmatized. If you were struggling, you were basically told to tough it out, pray, stay busy, or stop being dramatic. No one called it anxiety or depression, even when that's exactly what it was. So I ended up dealing with a lot of things quietly.
Yeah, I can relate to that. There's a mix of respect, tradition, and the survival mindset. Here's a follow up question. Did cultural expectations ever make you feel like you had to hide what you were going through?
Oh, 100%. There's this pressure to look fine all the time. To be respectful, be strong, don't complain, don't cause problems. I didn't want to come off as ungrateful or like I was being extra. So I hid a lot. I learned really young how to put on a face even when I was struggling.
Yes, thank you. And that lines up with the research I found. Social media is linked to anxiety, depression, sleep issues, and constant comparison, especially for girls and minority youth. So, another question I'd like to ask is, do you believe your sexual identity influenced your mental health while growing up?
Yeah, it definitely did. Being queer in the environment I grew up in wasn't always easy. I was scared of being judged or misunderstood, so I kept a lot of it to myself. I felt like I was carrying two versions of me, the one I showed and the one I was figuring out alone. That definitely took a toll. But as I've gotten older, being open about it has actually helped me feel more grounded and confident.
Now, I remember you said you identify as the oldest and have three younger siblings, correct? Would you like to share a little bit about how social media affects your younger siblings today? Any concerns you'd like to share?
Yeah, being the oldest, I get to see how different things are for them. They're growing up with social media in their faces 24/7. I do worry about them sometimes, the comparisons, the beauty standards, the pressure to look perfect or stay updated with every trend. They're seeing things way earlier than we did, and not all of it is healthy. I try to remind them that everything online is edited or exaggerated, but it's tough. It's a lot for kids who are still figuring out who they are.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. This is a safe space, and I really appreciate you opening up and being vulnerable here. Thank you for starting us off with your personal experience.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad I could share my little 2 cents. I love that you're doing this.
The next guest that will be joining us is someone who offers a teenager's perspective, my niece, Drea. Hi, Drea. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me on your podcast.
So, Drea, can you share with us a little bit about your identity and your cultural background?
Yeah, of course. I have a lot of identities. I'm a daughter, a niece, a student, grandkid. I am mixed, so I am Asian and Hispanic. Yes, I was born in the year 2010.
And you're a part of Gen Z, correct? You are the generation we're talking about today, and I would love to hear your input. I'll ask you my first question then. What has been the hardest part of being a teenager in today's society?
So I think the hardest part about being a teenager in today's society is that society has standards that not everyone can like fit in. So it's hard fitting in those standards when they expect so much from you. We all have necessities that we need to focus on, and just like being a teenager in general, it's a lot of pressure because we have so much stuff. You have school, you have your home life, you have like I don't know, maybe sports if you play sports. But also like social media has a big impact about being a teenager in society today because there's a lot of videos that point out your insecurities or something, or like just videos of really pretty girls and you just wish you could beat them. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Follow up question. Do you feel like adults understand what you're dealing with online or at school?
Um, kind of. Not all the time. I feel like it just depends on the adult. I don't know. I just feel like it depends on the adult's past experiences and stuff with that. So, like, if they're like the oldest child, they had a lot of stuff, they had a lot of responsibilities to do, and on top of that, school. So, like, and like, I don't know, they might get bullied or whatever. But I feel like some, not all, well, I feel like it's a little rare for adults to understand we are what we are dealing with online or at school because some parents, they don't really listen to what their kid is talking about and they just like brush it aside, and then like later on they're like, "Oh, why don't you talk to me and stuff?" But like, gee, I wonder why, because you don't ever listen to them when they're actually trying to talk to you.
Right, and studies show that social media is tied to higher stress, anxiety, and depression in teenagers. Do you feel that social media affects teens' mental health?
I feel like, I don't know, we shouldn't I feel like cyberbullying shouldn't exist, you know? Cuz that has a big effect on mental health. Um and like the social media platforms, I don't think cyberbullying should like exist. I feel like we should just like, I don't know, be a big community and stuff. But yeah, social media does have a big effect on teens' mental health.
Thank you for sharing that. My last question for you is what is something you wish adults would do differently to support teens' mental health?
I wish that adults would just like try to just actually listen and hear them out and not judge them for what they have done because they are struggling, and all they really need is support and guidance to the right path, not someone who just lectures them and just like yells at them for doing something wrong when they're struggling with their health. That's not being a supportive parent. That's not being a loving and caring parent. That's just straight up yelling at them. You just need to show them support, love, care, and affection, all that basic stuff that like literally comes with being a parent.
Thank you. Well, that just wraps up this segment here. I appreciate you coming on to my podcast and sharing your perspective as a teenager. Thank you.
Of course, I appreciate you inviting me on your podcast.
The next guests that I have on my podcast are my parents, who are also grandparents. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Jan. I'm a mother, a daughter, a grandmother, and a wife with 3 children. The eldest is my son and 2 daughters. I am Puerto Rican Filipino, and this is Amador.
Hi, I'm Amador. I'm a dad, I'm grandpa, and I'm Filipino.
Thank you so much for joining me here on this podcast. We're going to be discussing mental health in today's youth and how social media influences their behaviors and how their mental well-being. So the first question I have for you guys is, what was it like raising 3 kids before the well-known internet age that is today?
Raising 3 kids prior to this digital world as of today is fairly easier than how it is now. The only worries he had back then was to discipline, respect, and be part of their lives. These days, there are so much more threats because of the internet. So I feel it's easier to have raised them prior to this.
Dad, do you have anything to add?
Well, kids were more active back then and now. And if you take their phone away, it would be like the end of the world for them.
Those are valid points. My next question is, what was the most challenging part raising 3 kids before the internet?
The challenging part before the internet when raising a child is, again, teaching the basics of respect, discipline, right from wrong, but yet give them opportunities for what is out there. Now, society pretty much decides that for them.
And most of their communication nowadays are through the internet or the phone.
Okay, thank you very much. How does it compare to your grandkids being raised in the digital era?
The comparison that we have seen with the grandchildren compared to our children being raised is that communication skills are low. Common sense isn't taught, but isn't also being used because they're not able to be creative outside of what is in front of them.
Do you believe that the digital media or the internet affects their mental well-being?
Yes, I do believe it affects their mental well being because there is no human to human contact. Anybody can pretend to be anything, and you can't deal with a situation in front of you. With the internet, you're always behind the scenes. You have time to think, time to be somebody else, time to either please or not please, but may not be the truth.
And most of these kids believe in the internet.
Now, my next question is for you guys. Do you ever feel like it's harder to understand what the younger generation is going through right now compared to what it was like before the internet?
No, I I don't believe it, but they might feel because as my kids are grown already and I'm dealing with grandchildren, it's another generation and they may feel like we don't know anything because we're old, but we were raised from the bottom up of manual labor, of blood, sweat, and tears, had to help and support and respect elders, which is not done today.
All right, that is very well put. My last question here is what advice would you give other parents or grandparents raising teenagers in this era?
Advice would be you can't live in the past with them because it is truly a different society, a different generation. Take time to explore their thoughts and concerns and support them because society today does a lot of judging, and that's the hardest part a kid can grow up with: the bullying, the cyber attacks, the trying to fit in.
Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I appreciate you guys' input and personal experiences.
Thank you for having us.
For our final guest today, my older sister Aja will be joining us. Go ahead and introduce yourself. What do you identify as? And tell us a little bit about your cultural background.
Hi, I am recently divorced. I am a single mom of 4 amazing kids. I'm also a daughter, a middle child, and a sister. I am Filipino and Puerto Rican.
So, as a mother of 2 high schoolers and 2 younger ones, you see what your kids handle today, right?
Yes, I do, and some days I think it's ridiculous.
Do you feel like digital media plays a big part in your kids' everyday life?
I believe so, and it seems like it's something that they cannot live without it.
I see. What are some of the biggest mental health challenges that your kids face in today's digital media era?
Well, first of all, as a mom, what is my challenge for them with this social media or just being on electronics is that they don't know how to put it down for just 1 minute or not even 10 seconds. I have to consistently remind them, hey, just put your phone down for a minute. You're not going to die. Do your chores or eat dinner or go shower. But no, they end up taking their phone into the bathroom, or they just don't know how to put it down. So that is my challenge as a mom with kids about this digital phones and electronics devices. Basically, the challenge that my kids face in digital media is most likely just putting the phone down for not even 5 seconds, and it's the end of the world.
Do you feel like being a mom in this generation is harder because of social media and academic expectations?
Yes, I really believe that this generation is harder to raise because of all these electronics and social media and all this learning academic expectations. Everything's done online now. There's no physical papers anymore, and kids tell me that oh yeah, their homework is done, and then later on the next day in the email, your child has this missing assignment. They can complete it online in Canva, but you know,
How does it compare to your upbringing?
compared to me growing up, I survived. I survived without the social media, without a phone, basically. But then again, I was a pretty active child. I like to be outside, um, skateboarding, rollerblading, walking my dog. We played sports. I had a job as a teenager. Basically, I couldn't keep still, so I had to be doing something. I even played music also, but we did grow up with a computer and a telephone, and eventually I did get my own phone, but it was only for calling my parents to pick me up from my jobs. Um, Other than that, it is a whole different generation or a lifestyle raising these kids with these electronics. I mean, I'll be honest, it's a good thing that they have it, and it's also a bad thing at the same time. but it keeps them entertained. I actually enjoy them having their electronics and headphones if we go on long car rides, because at least they're not hitting each other and getting in each other's faces, and they can just be on their phone. But then again, I know that's a lot of screen time too if we're driving really far, but I think it helps me, so I'm not losing my mind and pulling out my hair on long car drives. But yeah, like I said, I think it's a good and a bad thing that they have these electronic devices.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you wish schools or communities provided that they don't right now that would definitely benefit teens' mental health?
For the schools, well, elementary school doesn't really have it because not a lot of kids have phones. I know more like fourth and fifth graders do, but the middle school and high school, they actually started this device pouch thing to where they put their cell phones or smartwatches in it, and it blocks all I don't know what you call it, but it blocks all signals, so that way they're not getting beeped or buzzed, or there's no distraction with the phones, and they can't read messages because it's not going to get delivered. I guess it's like putting the phone on airplane mode or something like that. So it does kind of help. But I know recently too, this last open house that we went to for my kids' school, they said, teachers said that most of their classes, not every class, but most of their classes, the kids have been doing a good job keeping their phone in their pocket or keeping it in their backpack, so they don't have to remind them so much about, hey, get off your phone. We're in class. Do not take out your phone or whatever. So I think at least the schools that my kids go to, I think they're doing the best that they can, and they're doing, I think, a pretty good job. I mean, I know not all teachers can make sure every, class is in order, but I'm sure they do their best. And like I guess if they have free time or whatever, then as long as the teacher gives permission, the kids, they tell me, "Oh, look, Mom, my teacher let us be on our phone today after we took our tests." So, and they're happy about it. So I don't know. I think it kind of makes them like their class a little more, that their teacher is okay with them being on their phone when it's like free time or downtime or whatever. So I think they're doing a good job. Although it would be nice if they had maybe some kind of, it would be nice if they had more mental awareness type of classes, or a subject or awareness or something. I know that sometimes they'll have like a mental awareness type of week, but I think that they should have it more often. I think they should have it more available or comfortable for the kids to actually want the help, to actually get the help if they need counseling or something. Because I feel like these phones, a lot of kids, especially my kids, they don't like to ask for help. You kind of gotta like nudge around them and kind of not push them, but you gotta kind of like nudge them to kind of get pushed to go that direction. So I think that they should have some kind of class, or maybe like a speech, some kind of special guest speaker or something about mental awareness. Or if they could do like, I don't know if there's a time where they can do like one-on-one with a counselor or something, but I think the school, especially starting middle school, that they should have some kind of mental awareness type of something going on more.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. Your voice as a parent is valued here. I appreciate your words. My last question is, do you have any advice for parents raising teenagers in this digital era?
Of course. Thank you for having me. I guess my advice for parents raising their kids in this era is communication. I mean, you can't go wrong with communication. I mean, even if it's through texting, even using their lingo, this generation's lingo, you know, it helps with the communication. Talking to them by calling them or text message or physically talking to them. I think communication, no matter what, is very important. I guess us as parents, we need to show them that we will always be there physically and even a phone call away. I mean, that's the point why they have these phones, right? Is they have a phone. Make use of it. The most important thing you need from a phone is to communicate with your parents, right? That's what I tell my kids all the time is you have a phone. Can you call me or text me if there's something on your mind or, you know, just the whole communication. You know, because sometimes they'll forget to tell me that they are staying after school and I'm waiting for them and I'm calling them and they're like, oh yeah, sorry mom, I forgot to tell you that I'm staying after school. It's like, this is why you have a phone. You could have texted me during lunch because I know you guys are on your phones during lunch, which they are because I do end up talking to them over lunch sometimes. But communication is very important. Trying to limit screen time. I mean, I know that is a hard one because I still have a hard time with that. But when I get a day to where I finally can do something all the kids like to do, we actually have a good time with phones away, with electronics away. We actually spend time and then we talk to each other and we play and all that stuff. Like, I'll be honest, the weekend after Thanksgiving, I took my kids hiking with my dad and no phones except for pictures or music is what I said. But nobody was on their phone playing games, scrolling to social media. They were just taking pictures and listening to music. And we, you know, had conversations, during the hike or walking together, you know, and that was, I think, the most conversation I had from my kids. Other than, oh, look, mom, look at this social media. Look at what this guy did or this girl did or whatever. It finally felt like we were getting our connection back, our bond back. And I know it's hard because, you know, most parents are working all the time and they don't really want to have to, sometimes they're just too tired to talk, but it's always best that you try to make time for them no matter what. Even if you're tired and they have to talk to you about something, just let them, you know. I mean, you might not hear everything that they're saying, but at least they're talking to you, you know, and, you know, sometimes for me, when they're talking to me, it's like, they gotta slow down because it's too much that they're talking too fast or something. But, I try to listen to each one of them, even though they're all talking at the same time. But it's like, hey, one at a time, you know, just keeping the communication open.
In our next segment here, we're going to be talking about policy recommendations by experts. So, based on everything we've heard today, real stories, real experience, and research, here are the changes that experts recommend. There should be more funding for school counselors and psychologists. There should be regulating harmful digital algorithms for teens, making mental health care affordable and accessible to all, including emotional wellness in school curriculum. I think that's a big one. Improving digital literacy education, and supporting families with community-based mental health programs. These aren't just optional. I truly believe they're necessary. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Screens. I want to especially thank all my guests today, my best friend, my niece, my parents, and my sister. And thank you to everyone listening. Teen mental health is not an individual problem, it's a social one. And once we understand that, we can actually start creating change. I hope hearing from today's guests gave you something real to think about, whether you're a teen living through all of this or an adult trying to understand it better. Before we wrap up today's episode, I want to take a moment to reflect on why this topic matters so much to me personally, and why it matters beyond just this one conversation. Growing up in an Asian Hispanic household, mental health was something we didn't really talk about. It was treated like a personal weakness or something you just push through. Because of that, I've watched family members and friends struggle quietly, especially with how intense digital life has gotten. So for me, episodes like this aren't just an assignment or a project, they feel necessary. They feel like something I wish my community had earlier. And from a sociological point of view, everything we talked about today shows how mental health isn't just an individual thing. It's shaped by school pressures, cultural expectations, race, gender, class, social media algorithms, and how society treats young people. Sociology helps us see the bigger picture, that teens aren't overreacting, they're responding to a world that puts a lot on their plate. This project isn't just for teenagers, it's for parents, teachers, mentors, caregivers, and honestly, anyone who's part of a community. Understanding this generation's mental health matters for all of us because these young people are the ones stepping into future workplaces, future leadership roles, future families. If this podcast gives even one adult a little more empathy or helps one teen feel seen, then it's doing what it needs to do. With that being said, thank you again for being here, for listening, and for wanting to learn. This is just the beginning of the conversations we're going to have. This has been Behind the Screens. I'm your host, Jalen. Catch you on the next episode.